Welcome to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Dale Lolley. And, the Steelers wrapped up what is their final full practice before they play their first preseason game Saturday night at Acrisure Stadium against the Seattle Seahawks at St. Vincent College here on Thursday. Days are all running together for me here, Wednesday, Thursday. You know how it is when you've seen 14 practices before a preseason game. I mean, holy mackerel. That's just almost unheard of these days, but that's what the Steelers have gone through here. 14 practices before they get to an actual game. And I tell you, these guys are ready to get out there and do some hitting against somebody other than Steelers. Mike Tomlin kind of surprised today a little bit. Typically, that final practice before they play their first preseason game, he kind of eases up on guys a little bit. This one, Thursday's practice was physical again, however, kept the players in pads. And I think that was in large part because, as I mentioned previously, Wednesday's practice was not the most crisp of sessions. And so I think, he wanted to see something better on both sides of the ball, really, from the offense and then the defense as well. So this thing started out, again, after going 0 for 4 on in that Wednesday practice in 7 shots to start the session off, Mitch Trubisky comes back and goes 4 for 4, and looked good doing so. Threw a jump ball to George Pickens on the first play, kind of a back shoulder throw, and he went up over Cam Sutton and came down with the catch. Then you saw Anthony pitch to Anthony McFarland. He got into the end zone. Again, they were live tackling today, so he falls into the end zone. That's another one that's off a kind of a little sweep action there, a true old-fashioned sweep with guys getting out there in front of him. Then it was a nice little play, quick catch it and throw it to Anthony Miller for a little inside screen, and Miller bowls his way into the end zone, fighting through a tackle there to go 3-0. And then he went back on the first pass to George Pickens was to the left side. The second one, this one to the right side, and he goes up and gets the catch there on the other side, almost identical catch there. I've talked to him a ton about George Pickens and what he can be in this offense. That's one thing, that those jump balls in those kind of situations, he is the guy to go up and get the football. A lot of again, one-on-one stuff, defensive backs against wide receivers. There were running backs against some of the defensive backs as well. Jaylen Warren, once again, showing that, he's really got some juice. A couple of really nice runs up the middle. And, Benny Snell was out for this practice. I think he's dealing with a knee injury, left practice early on Wednesday. And Jaylen Warren comes out and just had a couple of really electrifying runs. This kid he has a chance to really do something here this year. Again, as I told you earlier in camp, I was told that he's the second best running back in camp, and that wasn't coming from me. That's coming from somebody in the know. He's done nothing to disprove that at this point. That kid is really playing his way not only under the roster, but into perhaps a role for the Steelers in this thing. He is just really showing up every day. Later in a non-tackling drill, he had a run up the middle, broke into the clear, and then picked up a block from Cody White, and Warren cut off the block very nicely and took that to the end zone. Now, that was, again, a non-tackling drill, and maybe somebody would have gotten him on the ground at some point there, but he has some burst. When he hits the line of scrimmage, he is at full speed, so that's something to keep an eye on when you get into the game on Saturday night. Mike Tomlin announcing that, the starters are going to play about probably a better part of a quarter, if not a full quarter, against the Seahawks. Then we're going to see the 2s, and then we're going to see the 3s. But he said, and people were taking this, Mason Rudolph is going to be with the 2s, and Kenny Pickett's going to be with the 3s, and that means Kenny Pickett's going to play just the fourth quarter. Don't be so surprised, though, because what Mike Tomlin actually said in that situation was a little more interesting. He was asked about how they were going to handle the quarterback position in this game. And he said, it's probably going to be the way it's played out here to this point. Like I mentioned to you guys, I wasn't going to be blowing the wind regarding the quarterback rotation. We've been thoughtful about giving guys an opportunity to work with different groups, but our intentions are to play them in this first time out, very much the way we started this process. Now, you can look at that and say, okay, the way they started this process was Trubisky, then Rudolph, and then Pickett. But he also said they're going to mix some of those groups up, and we've seen that as well. And to that point, in this practice on Thursday, Kenny Pickett got the second team snaps. Now it's going to be Mason Rudolph playing after Mitch Trubisky, but that doesn't mean that Kenny Pickett's just going to play the fourth quarter in this game. I could see a situation where they bring Pickett in to get a little bit of run with some of the second team guys just to get his feet wet a little bit there. They need to see him in stadium. And I know, again, people were, well, Kenny Pickett had he had a really good day on Wednesday's practice. I've seen that. I've read that elsewhere and seen it tweeted out. I'm here to tell you, there were some throws, yes, that he completed, but he would have been sacked. Like, he's still got to get rid of the ball more quickly. And so that's the one thing that you want to see from Kenny Pickett when they get into that game on Saturday. You know, can he get rid of the football while he's under pressure? He's never been in a live NFL pocket before. They don't tackle the quarterback to the ground when they have these live settings here at training camp. And so that's going to be interesting. You know, some guys that, you know, I don't expect to see like TJ Watt or Cam Hayward or some other guys like that in this game. But there's some guys that are nicked up as well that I don't expect to see here. Like, you're not going to see Deontay Johnson out there, I don't believe, even though he practiced on Thursday as a full participant. I don't think that you're going to see, I mentioned Snell. You're not going to see Najee Harris, even though he was back at practice day, although he didn't do any of the contact stuff. So some things to keep an eye on there, but you're going to see a lot of these younger guys who are trying to prove themselves, like a Jaylen Warren. So that's kind of a thing to keep an eye on here as the Steelers get into this preseason schedule here. Next week's the last week of training camp. And so they'll be going back to the South Side. You know, things change a little bit. They'll do that later in the week. They'll break camp right before they go to Jacksonville. And I don't know that I expect a lot of things to change there. I think Mason Rudolph has been steady Eddie, very steady behind Mr. Trubisky. Trubisky's been he's had his good days, he's had his bad days, but he's had more good than bad over the last week and a half or so. Some of this stuff where you know, I've seen and heard some stuff where people were saying that, well, he's had a bad camp. That's really not the reality of the situation. I've seen him improve and get a better command of things. And so, you know, I think the Steelers all along have wanted Mitch Trubisky to be that guy. And, you know, I think he's pretty much done that job. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll come back with a little bit more here on what's going on with the Steelers and maybe some other stuff around the league. We'll do that when we come back. This is the Dale Lolley Show on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Welcome back. This is the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Dale Lolley, and had a chance to talk to some of the offensive linemen on this team on Thursday. And, you know, as I mentioned before, this continuity thing takes some time on the offensive line. One thing I've seen, though, from the offensive line really over the last week or so, they're starting to open some holes in the run game. The passing game's still been a little bit of a work in progress, and that's to be expected. But we're starting to see some of the combo blocks and things of that nature. And one of the guys who stood out there, again, when I mentioned those Jaylen Warren runs in the first segment, they were up the middle, basically behind those three middle guys that were doing their job in those situations. And I understand the Steelers, you know, Tyson Alualu still not out there doing a whole lot in terms of, you know, getting after it. And then Montravius Adams has been out for the last few days. So that's kind of to be expected, but you still got to make those blocks and you still got to be able to break those runs. And that's what we're seeing a little bit more of. These guys are getting some good blocking up front and creating some creases for the running backs. So I like what I've started to see there. I think that the pass blocking part of it will come. And I've seen, people talking about, Chuks Okorafor. Well, he's really struggling. Well, yeah, he's struggling against TJ Watt. And I talked to Okorafor about that on Thursday. I'm like, you're gonna be the happiest guy to see this camp end. He says, well, I look at it both ways. It's allowing me an opportunity to get better because I'm going against TJ Watt every day, and we know how good he is. I was watching him after practice on Thursday, and he's out there 20 minutes after practice ends. You see TJ Watt out there working on, his getting around the edge with some of the other guys out there, some of the young guys at that defensive lineman and linebackers, kind of going through, all right, here's hand placement and things of that nature. Get your duck and turn the corner, things like that. And that's what separates him from a lot of, the other really great players in the league right now. I'm sure they work as well, but you just see TJ Watt constantly perfecting his craft. And so I'm not going to kill Chuks Okorafor because he's having trouble blocking TJ Watt. No kidding. Everybody has trouble blocking TJ Watt. That's why he had 22 and a half sacks last year. See what it looks like in the game. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I really want to see Saturday night against the Seattle Seahawks. And they're not a great test. It's not a great defense. But can this offensive line go out there and create some holes, create some space and make some noise out there? Can they protect and do things like that? I don't, nobody really game plans for these preseason games. It's more about the one-on-one stuff and just a general kind of vanilla kind of thing on both sides of the football. But I want to see that offensive line hold up against somebody other than the Steelers. Lest we forget, the Steelers have the best pass rush in the league. They've had the best pass rush in the league the last 5 years. So, of course, you expect the offensive line to have some trouble blocking that unit. That's just, that's really very good. The best group in the league working against a group that's certainly not the best group in the league. And so, the expectation is that the defense should win in those situations. Even if it's Chris Wormley out there. Chris Wormley had 8 sacks last year. We don't expect him to get to the quarterback in some of these situations. That's just not realistic. So I want to see how it looks when they're out there working against somebody else. And I want to see continual steps. They've been in pads now about 6 or 7 times. Now I want to see what it looks like in a game. That's what these things are for, to get these guys ready. And so Mike Tomlin's going to play that unit pretty much that whole first quarter, maybe even leaves them out there a little bit longer. And that's a good thing. These guys are all young. They're all, up and coming kind of players here. I don't know that you have the high upside with a lot of these guys, but you don't need that. If you've got a bunch of guys across the board, 5 guys who are average, you've got a top 15 line, maybe a top 12 line in the league, because there's no real weakness. So that's what I want to see from this offensive line group. Show me that you don't have any weaknesses in terms of that's the guy we got to go after. That's the guy opposing teams are going to go after. That's really what this is about. I think not only are the players ready to see somebody else other than beating up on each other. I think everybody who's been out there covering these practices every day for the last basically over 3 weeks now wants to see the Steelers working against somebody else. That's what's going to happen on Saturday night at Acrisure Stadium. I'm Dale Lolley. That's going to do it for the Dale Lolley Show today. I'll be back again tomorrow. I'll give you a little bit more of a game preview here. Give you some other guys. We'll get more specific with some guys I'm interested in seeing play. We'll do that tomorrow. So tune in for that. Tune in for all of our shows. Check out all of our shows here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Give us a like. Give us some, leave us some reactions. Whatever you want to do there, we appreciate the feedback. That'll do it for today. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.